He doesn't need a whole lot of introduction. It's Scott Sutton, assistant basketball coach here at Oklahoma State, and I think all our listeners know about Scott as a player, former coach, and all those things at Oral Roberts, and now coach on Mike Boynton's staff. We just got finished doing a sit-down with Scott on the TV side, so I thought, hey, let's bring him over here. He can put his tea time off for a while and talk to us.
That's you, TD.
But he could talk to us. But on a serious note, there's a lot of our listeners wondering about the documentary on your dad. And you and your family had a chance to see it recently. Kind of take us through what was going on in that room and what you thought of the documentary as a whole.
Yeah, it was a couple weeks ago, and it's basically finished. I think they're going to add a few more things to the closing credits. But, yeah, the family and a couple of close friends and the producers and directors were in an old theater there in Tulsa, and we were able to watch it. And I tell you, it was a lot of nerves going into it because I don't think anyone really knew what to expect. We knew it would be well done because these guys have done a fantastic job as far as working hard, and they've interviewed, including yourself, seemed like hundreds of people. But it was very emotional, TD, as I was telling you on TV, that it was very fair. I thought it told a very accurate and a great story of my father's life, going back to when he was shooting baskets. They had footage of him shooting baskets with my grandmother back in Buckland, Kansas, to the time when him and my mom were students at Oklahoma A&M back in the late 50s, and we got a laugh out of it. And as we talked about, and a lot of our listeners, or y'all's listeners, have seen him at games here the last couple of years, and he's not doing great as far as health-wise. He had a stroke a few years ago, and so there's some uncertainty, and he doesn't communicate very well, so there's always been some uncertainty as far as how much he knows. We feel like he obviously recognizes us and the grandkids, and I've seen him around you, and I feel like he knows you, but you never know because you can't sit there and talk. But there was a couple pictures of my mom back in college, and my dad was sitting behind most of us in the theater because he was in a wheelchair, and they showed a picture of her in a bathing suit. This is 1958 or 59 or maybe 57, but all of a sudden we hear a big roar of laughter in the back of the room, and we all kind of turned around surprised, and it was my dad just laughing, and so that was great to see. Obviously, he recognized my mom, and he was I think he enjoyed the film. We all enjoyed it. I thought it was extremely well done, extremely professional. Some parts were hard to watch, but it was fair, and it told the true story of the ups and downs of my father's life. And there was thankfully a lot more ups and a lot more positives, but there certainly were some times that were tough on the Sutton family, and it was extremely tough on Sean, and I thought Sean did a fantastic job of really opening up and showing really the world his true feelings of some of the things that happened, especially when he was back in Kentucky. That was a difficult time for Sean and obviously the whole family and for my father. But Sean took a lot of it, a lot of the brunt from my dad at times. He took a lot of it from the Kentucky fans, and so Sean opened up about it. And I think a lot of people will really have a new sense of, and I think he is beloved around here, regardless of what happened during his tenure as the head coach. But he had such a huge part of rebuilding Oklahoma State basketball when my father got here as a player and then as an assistant coach for 15 years. But they'll see a different side of Sean and probably appreciate him even more.
Did you have any apprehension going into the viewing? I mean, not knowing. I mean, you knew what was going to be in it. You didn't know what form it was going to take. But was there any anxiety amongst yourself and the family?
Oh, absolutely. We were nervous. You could tell there was tension in the air when we all were there beforehand, because you thought you knew what you were going to see, and you knew you were going to see some difficult things. But they'd spent so much time with so many different people. you know, each of us, and then Sean, I'm sure Sean spent more than I did, but I probably spent 2 hours with him. I know you probably spent 2 hours with him. And you're talking about they went around the country and talked to so many different people. You know, Bill Clinton's and Jerry Jones and former players at Arkansas and Kentucky and obviously Oklahoma State. You just didn't know what exactly how the finished product was going to be and be laid out. So yeah, there was some nervousness, and so I think when it was all done, and I think the producers and directors were so excited to hear how we felt, and we all felt great about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was, like I said, at times difficult to see some of the things that had happened during my father's life and during his career, but it was very fair, and I thought it told a great story. And you know, if you're a sports fan, if you're a Oklahoma State or a Kentucky or Arkansas fan, I think it's a must watch. But even if you're not just a sports fan, I think it's a great story about a man who, and it's real. I mean, we all go through it. I mean, every family has struggles, and this is what it was about. It was about a family and about a man who had struggles throughout his life, but was able to overcome most of those and have a huge impact on so many different people.
What part, again, it would have to be painful for all of us, but what part did the plane crash play in the overall video? And I'm sure they did it very well, very tactful, but what part did that play in the documentary?
No, it was in it quite a bit. You know, they kind of went through it starting out as a kid and kind of just went through his life through, you know, his being a coach at Tulsa Central to College of Southern Idaho to Creighton to Arkansas and you know, obviously ended up here at Oklahoma State. I actually ended up at San Francisco for those you know, couple months, but yeah, they talked about it and you know, interviewed several people about it. I know Karen Hancock was on there, and she did a fantastic job. And but yeah, that was one of the more emotional parts of the story for sure.
You know, we talked about this on the TV side, and as close as, obviously, as you are to the situation and have been, does it still take you aback a little bit to know how beloved your dad was and still is? Because all you have to do is go to the games, basketball, where he's in attendance. And with all due respect to everybody else, the loudest ovation in that building comes when Larry Reese recognizes your dad. Now, all these years later, it's still a love affair between Oklahoma State and Eddie Sutton.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see, and I love it selfishly for my father to be able to come back, and I know he loves coming back, and that brings joy to him. I love it for my kids to be able to see that, because they were too young to remember when he was coaching. My oldest was probably 5 or 6 when he retired. But it says a lot about, you know, a couple of things. I think Oklahoma State fans are special. It is, and people say this all the time, but it truly is a family. This community is a family. They support and they love their own, and he was one of them. And you know, I still remember, you know, Mr. Ibis saying, you know, we were bringing him back home, and when they hired him, and I think it'll be the same reaction, you know, 20 years from now or 30 years from now when Coach Gundy or Coach Holliday come back to football games or baseball games, or they happen to come to the basketball games when, you know, hopefully Larry Reese is still announcing and they introduce them. There's going to be a huge ovation for those two guys because they are Oklahoma State. They are alums. They're one of us, and they've done a great job. But the other thing we talked about was, you know, my father took over here in 1990. There wasn't a whole lot of positive things going on in the athletic department. You know, football was coming off, or it was right in the middle of a very tough time with probation, and didn't have a whole lot of success, and whether you like it or not, athletic departments across America are really judged by, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but a lot of times are judged by their football program and their men's basketball program. And obviously we've had a lot of success, huge success, and we have some of the best programs in America and some of the other sports. But at that time, football was way down, basketball was way down. It had only been to one NCAA tournament in 25 years. And all of a sudden, he came in and took over a program that Leonard Hamilton had left some really talented players.
Yeah.
You talk about Corey Williams and Byron Houston and Darwin Alexander, and then you add Sean to that group, and all of a sudden they go from really being, just a very, very average program to being ranked, and all of a sudden the fans had something to really cheer about and rally around. And so I think that's part of it too, of why his and then he loved this school. He made sacrifices for the betterment of the athletic department. He easily could have gone in at any time and demanded more things, whether it's salary or whatever it may be, and he never did, because he knew that wasn't in the best interest of the athletic department at that time.
2 Sweet 16s back to back. That got everybody excited back then, and as I've said, this is not Scott, this is me, but he was the most powerful figure at Oklahoma State for a number of years, he being Eddie Sutton, and a lot of decisions, a lot of opinions of this, that, and everything else will run through him, whether it was athletics or not. And that shows you the respect level he had throughout the entire community, fans and academia and all those good things. You're not in this business, but do you have an idea of when the rest of the people can see this documentary at one time?
It's our understanding that what the next step is, that they'll try to get this film into some different film festivals. The Sundance is one of the biggest ones in America, I guess. I don't know anything about films or film festivals besides watching movies, but I guess that's the next step, is try to get that admitted into one of those festivals, and then it'll be seen. And I guess that's when a lot of these different type of networks will look at it and want to buy it or not want to buy it. And you're talking about ESPN or Netflix, or there's so many of them now that they could put on their their programming. So it's unfortunately it's probably going to be a while before the general public will be able to see it. Whether that's a few months, 6 months, a year, I don't know.
Before we cut this segment off, and I know Jordan's saying you take a break, so we'll probably take a break and come back and do a little quick thing about what's coming up in basketball with Scott Sutton. But tell me, did they get the shots of your dad in the peach basket with a ladder going up and getting the ball out of the peach basket?
He's not quite that old, but they had some great footage. They had some tremendous footage throughout the years, and I just wish I could go back and watch it right now, because you sit there and watch it, and there's so much I don't remember about it, and so many things that. But I'll have that chance one day too.
Yeah, I told you on TV. I wish that they would have had this segment too, because I used to get into it with your dad all the time. We had a good time for the years that we worked together. We had tremendous rapport and love for each other, so we could get away with some other stuff that others couldn't. But I remember your dad used to, shall we say, he used to embellish stories. And
you think?
Yeah. I mean, I'm being politically correct here, but he would embellish when he was a youngster, and he had to get up in Buckland at 2 o'clock in the morning, go out and feed the cows and get the hay, and before he went to school. And anytime he was saying that in the presence of your mother would go, "Now, Eddie, that's not true." And then we'd have to go to a break, just like we have to go to a break right now. We'll take a break. When we come back, I'll get Scott's kind of run down a little bit of what this basketball team is looking at right now, look how they're looking as they take a little break from the court themselves. We'll do that after this. But joining us on this part of the show is Scott Sutton, assistant basketball coach, and we covered the documentary at length in the first segment. But we would be remiss, Scott, if we didn't just kind of touch base a little bit on the existing team right now. They're home, getting away from basketball and the coaches getting away from the players. But up till now, what's it been like? And certainly a lot more enthusiasm with the depth, the talent, the skill level, all those things and all those ingredients.
Yeah, it's a good time. Kids needed a break, and I think the coaches needed a break. And these 2.5 weeks, got done with summer school and summer practice last week, and so they're back home with their families here for a few weeks, and then getting back, when school starts. But yeah, it's so much different. We talked about it earlier. It's so much different than certainly when I played, when the coaches couldn't have any contact on the floor with their players. It was all done in the weight room and conditioning, and the guys would play pickup on their own. But we get them for 8 weeks, and we get them 8 hours a week, and 4 of that is with Jake, our strength coach, who's done an unbelievable job with our guys. He does it every year. I think he's the best basketball strength coach in America. But 4 of it can be on the basketball floor. So we've been practicing a couple days a week, and it's been a great summer. Obviously a talented group of freshmen and newcomers coming in. On paper, these rankings, if you believe them, it's somewhere between the top 15 to top 25 recruiting class in America, and it's probably one of the best ones we've had here in quite some time. So, a lot of excitement, and also excitement from how last season ended. Last season was not fun for anyone, coaches, players, fans, in my opinion, until the very end. Mm-hmm. And it got enjoyable because of the way the guys played. And I'm talking about the guys that, the 6 or 7 players that we still had left on the roster and what they gave us. And, we have all those guys back, the 3 seniors and Lindy and Thomas and Cam, and then the 2 freshmen that started for us last year, Isaac and Yor, and both those young men had tremendous summers. Isaac played on the under-19 USA basketball team and had a great summer, and then Yor is a kid that continues, and we saw the progress last year, but he continues to get better and better. And
NBA people peaked about his interest.
If you'd have told me that a year ago, that before his sophomore year, the NBA teams would be calling about him, I would have said, no, I don't think there's any way that's going to happen. But that's the case, and he's on the radar of NBA folks, and he's playing with such a great confidence right now, and so I think those 2 guys will take huge steps. And then of course the seniors, and we talked a little bit, and I don't want to forget this. Those 3 seniors, and the 4th one we have is Jonathan Loren, who's a grad transfer from UMass by way of Rutgers his freshman year. And but the 3 seniors that have been here, this is a special group. I mean, these guys have gone through so much. You mentioned, and I'd forgot because it was before I got here, but they lost a teammate who died tragically. I think before their freshman year, before their freshman year. They were recruited by Travis Ford. Played 1 year for Brad Underwood, and then played the last 2 years for Coach Boynton. And in the middle of that, you have a FBI investigation, and you have teammates that leave and have been kicked off, and so they've been through so much. And I think of this team, and you can really see the hunger in their eyes of those 3 seniors, that they want to go out on the special note. And I really believe if this team is as good or gets as good as I think we can, I think this will be a team that has a chance to make the NCAA tournament. If they do, these 3 guys should go down as a really special class.
And we've covered the Boones, we've covered Watson, we've covered Anderson, all the way down the line, and the new people in. And again, Chris Harris, I don't want to forget him. That's part of that group. And we may touch upon that here in a little bit. But the 2 I want you to get after here, if we can, are, you mentioned one, Laurent. He brings experience and maybe brings the skill set, the push for a starting role. And then the other guy, Hidi Rusink, who just was a late arrival, but I kind of likened him to Frederick Janzian. I hate to do that because he's not Frederick Janzian yet, but take those 2 here and give us a little bit of rundown.
Yeah, Hidi, we Coach Cooper we were in desperate need of getting some help inside. Back in, I guess, late April or May, we were sitting there with Yornay, Caleb Boone, who came in weighing about 184 pounds, and it wasn't close to being ready to go battle against Azabukis of the world of the Big 12. But he's had a great summer. He's gained some weight. But and then you throw in Cam, and those are the three guys that we had. So we needed to go, and we tried to get a fifth-year grad transfer center, and those are hard to come by. I mean, everybody in the country is looking for those, and we couldn't get one that was the right fit. So anyway, Coach Cooper had some contacts in Europe, and found this about this kid, and it's a gamble because you recruit foreign players, you don't get to see them as much. Obviously, you don't get the to evaluate them as many times as you do a young man here in the States. So we'd heard and we saw on film that we thought he was pretty skilled and had good size, but we really didn't know what we were getting. And they've had some kids here in the past, and I had certainly had kids at ORU that were in this mold as far as bringing kids in, not knowing exactly what you were going to get. And sometimes it pans out, sometimes it doesn't. But this kid has had a great summer. Hitty is a tremendous young man, highly, highly intelligent, wants to be a doctor. Sometimes that doesn't translate into having a high basketball IQ, but this kid does. He's probably has the best basketball IQ of any of the freshmen, and to be honest, one of the better ones on our team. And you could tell he's been coached, he's played the game, and his skill set is very similar to a Frederick Janzin's. I think he shoots the ball from distance, from three-point range, better than Frederick did. He's not as big physically yet, but he is a true freshman. He probably weighs 215 to 220, and with Jake, I think he can get him up to 230 by the time we start playing games. So he has a bright future. Really excited about it. I think he'll be I don't want to put too much pressure on him or any of the freshmen because you just don't know. But I think any of the six freshmen, I could sit here and make a case, hey, that kid could have a pretty big role on this year's team. Now, will all six have a big? It's probably highly unlikely because you're not going to play 12 guys. Maybe early in the season you might, but as you get down and you tighten up the rotation, probably you won't play 12. And that'll be a decision Coach will have to make as far as does he want to redshirt anybody or not. But we're really excited about Hitty, and then Jonathan brings us something that we had to have. I wouldn't say he's an inside guy, but he's certainly a guy that
in a pinch he could play inside, couldn't he?
Yeah. He certainly could guard. He could go guard a power forward. 6'6", 6'7", a combo forward. Best thing he probably does is he can really shoot the basketball. He shot 47% from three-point range at UMass last year. Compare that to Thomas and Lindy. Both of them had unbelievable years from three-point range. Both of them shot in the mid-40s. So, you put those three guys on the floor, you can really spread the floor and space the floor and have guys that can be a threat from that distance. But he's a guy that played and had an outstanding freshman year at Rutgers. Rutgers plays in the Big Ten, so he's been in some venues, like Michigan, Michigan State, and Indiana, Ohio State. So he's not going to be, intimidated going into Fog Allen Fieldhouse or going into Lloyd Noble or going to some other places in the Big 12. So, we needed that type of experience, and he certainly provides it.
You were very close to the Boones as we get ready to wrap this up with Scott Sutton. And before they got here, so you knew their skill set. And I don't know if this is fair or not, but, I thought Caleb kind of got a lot of the lion's share of the attention. And maybe in some people's minds, not the coaches, but some people, Keelan will come around eventually. But this is me. You disagree, and let me know if you disagree. But it seems like Keelan has kind of taken over a little bit in terms of the guy. He doesn't have a shot he dislikes. I mean, there's a shot out there for him everywhere. But he has made tremendous progress, and maybe he's the Boone that people will be looking at.
Well, I think they both have bright futures. But you're right. Caleb kind of was the guy that was ranked higher and was considered the better prospect. I always thought Keelan's upside was tremendous.
Mm-hmm.
He's a shot maker. I mean,
and a shot taker.
He is a shot taker, but if you're going to be a shot taker, you want him to be a maker. And then he
kind of like you when you played here.
Yeah, I was a shot. I didn't shoot. If I shot the ball, I think the whole crowd moaned. They wanted me to throw to the big country.
You would have been on the bench probably sooner than you thought.
But he's a guy that makes tough shots, and I think he's kind of come in with a chip on his shoulder because all the other 5 or the 4 freshmen before Hitty got here, were all 4 stars and ranked in the top 100, and here he was a 3-star. Rankings don't mean a whole lot, and stars, but he didn't have the accolades that the other guys had, and he just kind of came in and said, "Hey, I'm gonna show that I belong here," and he's done a great job in the weight room. He's gained weight. He's gotten stronger, and he plays with the confidence that at times I wish Caleb would have. Caleb kind of gets down on himself, and when he makes a mistake, and Caleb just says, "Oh well, I'll go on to the next play," and that's what you want in a player. You can't have him looking back and worrying about what just happened. You got to worry about the next play, and because he kind of brings that. So I think again, whether that translates to this season or not, he's going to be an outstanding player and has a chance to be a really, really good 4-year player for us.
You touched upon it in our last segment, or last go around with Scott here. You touched upon it a little bit. You threw the redshirt thing out, and that's still to be determined. Nobody's going to. But it's a nice quote unquote problem to have more bodies than maybe the minutes allotted. When you guys get together as coaches, I mean, certainly you're being proactive. And this has to come up that. Well, in the grand scheme of things, so-and-so may not play but 2 or 3 minutes. Do you want to waste a whole year on 2 or 3 minutes?
Those will be conversations I'm sure Coach will have with us. We have not had them yet. I don't think there's, again, we've done it for 8 weeks, but so much can change. I mean, you look back at, and this story's been documented many times, but you could look back to Bryant Reeves when he first stepped on campus. Yeah. And you were front and center of every practice, and from the improvement he made from August 15th when he stepped on campus to November 15th when he played his first game was remarkable.
Yeah.
And young kids can improve quickly, and so I think it's really too early to sit here and say who, because I can make a case for any of these 6 guys that they could end up being 20-minute game guys or more. But you certainly don't want to waste a year. And my dad always said this, you're so much better as a 5th-year senior if you redshirt 1 year than you are as a true freshman. Mm-hmm. There's no doubt. You're physically stronger. You're more mature. You've got the experience of playing 3 years of basketball at this level. So if there's a young man that Coach feels like is maybe not quite ready to have a bigger role, then that may be the case. And it's certainly it's good for your program because you get older. It's always good to be old. And when I say old, it's always good to be experienced and have experience.
Some of our best teams were that good because of the day-to-day competition. That's what you're going to get out there right now. As I see it, some of the better games, quote-unquote, are going to be played between weekends and Wednesdays because that's where the improvement's going to take. And these guys will compete. They'll get after each other, or they have.
No, it's been great. I mean, and that's what you talk about last year's team, and it's a credit to Coach and a credit to the 6 or 7 players that played late last year. We played our best basketball in February and March. I mean, we had chances and probably should have beat a lot of those teams. I mean, looking back, Oklahoma and Kansas at home certainly had chances to win, and Texas Tech on the road. And this was with the team going against and not taking anything away from the walk-ons, but we brought in 7 walk-ons in January, and that's who they were practicing against every day. And it's hard to get better without great competition, and that's what's exciting about this year. Coach has already done it a few times, have put the veterans against the rookies, the freshmen. And I'm telling you, it's a battle. The freshmen have held their own, and it's going to make both groups better and make both teams. And I still remember when when Sean and my dad's second year, and that great group was
Bobbick, the Grahams.
Well, that was in '04. But
Yeah.
all those guys redshirt and
too,
transferred. Yeah. But when Brooks Thompson and Randy Rutherford and Von Bennett and myself, we were all red shirts, and we had to go against Sean and Byron and Corey and Darwin and Cornell and that group. I mean, we were talented enough, and I say we, Brooks and Randy were talented enough that we can compete against them, and we made them better, and they certainly made us better for the next few years when we were able to play. That's
just the ideal situation. Hey, I appreciate you spending a couple hours with us today, and I really appreciate your comments on the documentary. I don't know, do we have to take a break here and go to the top, Jordan? What do you want to do?
Got a couple minutes here, so.
Okay, yeah. He's the quarterback, so I'm looking for an audible here. But what will be the next step? Let's get into the schedule, okay? Because you like the way it shapes up. You do have it's the secret, but you do have a scrimmage that's not open to anybody against Tulsa to start it off. But then, do you like the way it lays out, the non-conference part of the schedule?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some games, especially early, that you always like to and I think that hurt last year's team. I mean, to be honest, going out to Charlotte, it was a game that had no reason to lose. You're up 20-something points and you lose, but it's a road game with a bunch of young players, and those are always difficult. They're always scary. You never know what's going to happen. So to get 2 games at home against ORU and UMKC, hopefully, especially with our freshmen, we'll get them acclimated a little bit, and then you have your first road challenge at Charleston, which won't be easy. And you come back for a couple good mid-major teams in Yale and Western Michigan before you really get tested up in Brooklyn at the Barclays with Syracuse and either be a much improved Penn State team or an Ole Miss team. So, and then you have some. I think our home schedule is terrific. You talk about Georgetown and getting that program and Patrick Ewing to come to Stillwater, Oklahoma.
How about that, huh?
You remember back when my dad first took over, how hard it was to get any name opponent to come to Stillwater?
Because they knew they'd get their butt whipped. I mean, they would say, why do I want to make that trip and go through all it takes to get to Stillwater and then have to explain to our fans why I got beat by 25?
But can you imagine in 1991 or 2 or 3 that Georgetown would come to Stillwater and play?
No.
So
no, I don't think
to have them here, and then obviously Wichita State will be good, and then our fans in Tulsa will have a chance to see us play against the University of Minnesota. So I think it's a very challenging non-conference schedule, but a schedule that hopefully we can have some success and build on and get ready for Big 12 play.